Mistakes people make when mixing reggae music, or that I have noticed when mixing reggae music. First one, no panning on lead vocals, drums and bass lines. Basically, your drums, bass lines and lead vocals all have to be in the center of the track. What do I mean by center? When you pan left or pan right, things become confusing. The lead vocal becomes a side vocal. The bass guitar becomes a side instrument. Drums become percussions. You need them in the center so that they hold everything together. Bass, drums and lead vocals. Yeah. Only using EQ to boost is a very common mistake. People always end up, they forget that EQ, if you really want to use EQ the right way, you cut to make it sound better and you boost to make it sound interesting. When you see someone cutting to make it sound interesting, that's not really what you're doing. You're making it sound different. You're not making it sound interesting. If you want to make something sound interesting, boost certain parts. If you want to make it sound cleaner, cut certain parts. Simple EQ. Number 3, lack of headroom in the mix. When you make reggae, there's always a lot of bass and drums, and those are the dominant instruments. So if you do not leave enough space between the highest part of the song and the maximum peak of the meter, you need at least some headroom of about 3 dB to allow your song to sound clean to people's ears, not pumping and peaking all over the place. Number 4, being careful with adding bass to a reverb or adding reverb to bass. Bass and reverb don't mix because bass is very deep in sound. It's a very low frequency sound. If you mix it in with the reverb is just going to stretch the bass in the whole room, and the mix will become what they call a muddy mix. So make sure the bass is not in the reverb. EQ out bass in reverb, you'll have a clean reverb after. Refusing to take mix session breaks, or taking mix session breaks, sorry. When you take a mix session break, usually if the break is longer than an hour, then your ears have changed. Usually you have to mix with the same ears you woke up with that day. If your ears get tired and then you move and then you come back, you've come back with different ears and you're going to keep changing the mix. Make sure before you finalize the mix, you listen to it with those tired same ears, so that when you wake up the next morning, hear something different. The change is much minor than when if you are resting every time, coming back with different ears and then making small changes for weeks, which I've done, and it's not helpful. Avoid mix presets. If you have to use mix presets from software, use it as a starting point. Don't use it as the value of what you need for the final sound. Mix presets are just there to give you a stepping stone. Never rely on them as a crutch. They will disable you. Using a single drum track for all your drums. That one is a common mistake. When you're mixing reggae, people need to be able to isolate the rim shot or to isolate the snare from the hi-hats. Most times the hi-hats even need a different delay, so it needs its own mix track. If you don't have enough mix tracks, find a better software or find an interface. Usually they help. Disorganization, another big problem. If you're disorganized in the mix, the sound will be disorganized. Make sure you organize each track. Basses alone, vocals alone, background vocals alone, instruments, drums. Make sure they are all together so that even if you're panning vocals, the pans look organized on the mixer, so you don't have to be confused. Mixing is not mastering. When you mix, you're not mastering, you're mixing. To mix is to balance individual tracks. To master is to balance the final output for the final track on all platforms and devices. That's the major difference between mixing and mastering. Hope I helped you. I've been your dub doctor.